Colleagues, good afternoon. We are opening our panel 5, and I would like to welcome you all to join in. Our fifth panel is devoted to the electronic platforms and their race and who will win. Well, kind of like intriguing, right? But as we know, electronic platforms, or ECN, would be important for the market. Now, we have 5 panelists today. Head of FX markets from Moscow Exchange, Andrey Skabelin, who is offline with us today. Also, Vyacheslav Kashigin, CEO from NTPro, offline again. 3 panelists online with us today. Oleg Shevelenko, the product manager for FXGO from Bloomberg.
Hello, Oleg. Do you hear us? Yes, we see. Good. Это Olga Frediani.
Olga Frediani from CME Group. Olga. And Bart, Joris, head of FX sell-side trading from Refinitiv. We are going to try to be quick and fit within the 45 minutes. Maybe we'll can finish, say, 10:02. So I would ask all the speakers and the panelists to comment on this question. Please be brief and try to really fit into like 2 minutes each. So let us begin. And the question is, what is happening with trading volumes on multi-dealer FX platforms? Do they decline or rise? Statistically, we see that the flows have shown some decrease in the daily volumes, but now we see a pickup of those, and they are growing now. The BIS and various national regulators believe that this is caused by the fact that there is some kind of internalization effect of the big dealers and big banks. The question is whether you observe such a trend, and what else may affect the volumes, and what is the current status of the market. I also wanted to have a question for you to vote on, so about the use of electronic platforms in your work. Maybe Olga can provide the first comment about the trading volumes in those platforms, and generally speaking, what would be the volumes now?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me here. So I will be brief. And so first of all, we do a lot of things on CME. So we have a comprehensive FX trading venue, EBS market, order-driven interdealer market, EBS relationship platforms, and now we have CME-listed FX products. So in recent years, we've seen increased bifurcation on the spot markets. So talking about EBS market, yes, in recent years, the volatility was pretty low, and the volumes been impacted by considering low volatility, increased internalization, aggregation, plus decimalization in the wider market. It's diminished liquidity on central limit order book. Talking specifically about ruble, so to increase our liquidity and to improve the spreads during active London trading hours, we introduced market making program to support spreads, and they've been quite successful. So we're seeing quite competitive spreads during the day. Talking about on the positive side, so on the relationship-based platforms, we've seen volumes increase driven by relative performance in low volatility periods. So this is quote-driven dealer-to-client market. And we saw a number of new clients on the relationship-based platforms. So Ruble been pretty active, and the volume increased on these platforms. So to say in general, volumes growth driven by new customers and on the relationship-based platforms.
Спасибо, Olga.
Thank you, Olga. Bart, do you see any decrease in the volumes on Refinitiv platforms, or do you see a growth? So what would be the impact for that?
So from our side, I think as operating in the different markets, different segments, as Olga was already referring to, from a primary market, secondary market, all or not relationship-based, all or not in a club form or anonymous, I think overall you see a shift in the way how trading is actually happening as we speak. And this due to several causes which actually sits into it. Some of them are relationship-based, as Olga was saying, but 80% is actually driven by credit, better spreads, if you come directly in the way how you actually look into it, which drives to a certain extent volumes from primary markets into the secondary markets. But overall, and in the way how the market evolves together with some economical influences, because don't forget economics still has a big play to do. The more we go into recession and we come out of a very interesting period with COVID, for example, it also impacts in the way how volumes are actually sitting. But I think electronification from our side and the way how we actually look into it, the trading on the platforms, there is only one way how it actually can really go, and this is the way up. The reason is there is a continuously moving from the market in terms of the way how manual are working against the way how you actually really go into electronic ways. And the reason why that actually is transparency which comes along with it. So as people are looking to actually come into the market, you get actually into a circle where you actually move from the more transparent the market is, the more people are actually coming into it, the more transparent you actually create that market, the more market data becomes into it. So you get continuously that circle between more transparency, more data, more trading. And that's going to continue. And it's going to shift from something which is very well known as, for example, from spot, but it's going to go into the NDF world. And then actually it's going to go even to the forward world. It's just an evolution in the way how we actually need to move forward. And that's going to drive the volumes on the platforms. And that's also what we believe from a Refinitiv perspective and from an LSEG perspective, that drive for the new volumes on the platforms is what you're looking over the commoditized world where spot already currently resides into. And I think there's internalization plays into it. Yes, 100%. It's impact driven. So people are looking to actually reduce impact. The less you can move the market, the better it actually is. And then you have that whole set of tools which comes along with it, from aggregators to algorithms to anything which actually is offered through platforms. But platforms stay substantial in the way how they work. And there is only one way up. It's my view.
Okay, Bart, thank you very much. Спасибо.
Oleg, maybe you can share with us, Bloomberg, would it see any change in the volumes? And in your view, are we talking about some decline or rise in the platforms?
Definitely. First of all, pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. To continue kind of a thought from Bart and Olga, we also see volumes on the upward trajectory. And this has to do with several factors. First of all, client adoption. So if back in the days, adopters of electronic trading platforms would be primarily banks, hedge funds, maybe some real money accounts. And these days we see expansion primarily in non-financial sectors. About a quarter of clients on the platform are from corporate sector, corporations. And they drive significant expansions both on the client side and volume side. Also, again, to continue the thread which my colleagues brought up is the fact that right now electronic trading is something which is much more than spot. So again, traditionally back in the days, electronic trading was synonymous to spot. These days, we see significant expansion of electronic trading capabilities in the derivatives market. So NDF markets are getting more commoditized, and this is both from price transparency perspective as well as liquidity provision, meaning that on the bank side and non-bank side, liquidity providers and market makers will learn how to produce price electronically and hedge electronically, which significantly increases the offering in those derivatives instruments. Same thing in FX options, where we see a tremendous uptick lately. We see about 25 liquidity providers streaming liquidity in electronic fashion and in those types of instruments. So swaps as well. Precious metals continue the trend. So the fact that it's beyond spot, electronic trading is beyond spot, definitely is a factor. Also, just to mention that electronic trading itself continues to redefine. So if back in the days it was either streaming liquidity from a purpose of price transparency or the request for quote to free providers, then these days it's much more. It's a whole workflow suite which our clients demand and we are trying to provide. So from that perspective, this is the value add of electronic trading platforms, and that drives the volume. So we're pleased to see continuous adoption and expansion, and we hope that continue to be the trend.
Oleg, спасибо.
Thank you, Oleg. I wanted to put the same question to our offline speakers. Andrey, we see that the volumes are around some small numbers compared with 2008. What's happening with the volume on the exchange? Well, Dmitry, you're just calming yourself down because the banks say that the volumes are going up, you know? That's what the bank said on the sidelines. Hi, everyone. I'll have to speak English, I guess, to boost myself in your eyes and make myself more important, but MOEX indeed believes it's a global platform. 14 million accounts from 130 countries. And the Euromoney survey, where we were ranked in, what was that, client service or excellence, we're second, and 16 from multi-dealer platforms. Let's talk about volumes. 2020 was amazing. We really loved it. We monitor the statistics. We tracked about 10 platforms that share their changes month to month, months on month. And in 2020, we were ahead. We were up more than 30%. You know, we can benchmark ourselves against the best of the best. This year, we're roughly between 4 to 6 billion spot markets. It's not super great. August was bad for everyone since we're a global platform, as I said, and all global platforms in August reported a record ever figures. And I mean, everyone reported record low figures, and some of the we were low too, but some of the competitors were up. That was in August. For us, our key priority is new flows, new products. Since we have highly diversified offering, from 1 cent order book to request for stream, we're looking at every new product that's online over the past 2-3 years, and we monitor these new products and these new streams. And finally, we have request for stream that's been successful. We see there's been between between 50 and 200. We are restoring our liquidity in speed bump, and on our stand you can see the dependence of the spreads. What's the spread in speed bump? What's the spread in the main order books? With enough liquidity, you might have great volume. The main order book, you have a kind of a wave which is up and down depending on the stability. If the market is calm, then those waves are not very high, and the participants of the first panel, those who internalize, they mainly manage that flow and volume. Okay, Antipro is a pretty new platform. It emerged just recently. What can you say about volume? Are you seeing any growth? What's your sentiment? Colleagues, as part of our platform, we are seeing significant growth of turnover thanks to onboarding new customers and extra functionality. Last year we managed to make sure our position grows stronger. The 9 months figures see up 38% in terms of turnover versus similar figures in last year. That's all thanks to the fact that our clients provide feedback, and we provide full engagement, the shortest time. So these are the key advantages. In terms of internationalization, our platform has a position management system which helps you to internalize your volume, your turnover, and it can also help you with FX gaps. So we are seeing a significant increase in the turnover. Thank you, colleagues. Our distinguished audience, I'd like to put the first question to all of you. That's part of our survey. What part of your fixed trading volume is concluded via FXCCN or exchange? So I hope you're all active. Go on slido.com. Here's the number of the conference: 138-131. Again, 138-131. Slido.com. I hope you're all active so that we can track the outcome. And now I'd like to put the next question. So we heard you about the volumes. So they've been growing, and that's despite the pandemic. Maybe it's just the economy is going back to normal. But here's my next question: who's part of that growth? Who are the clients? What are the products? What kind of trends do you see out there? What kind of products are most in demand? What services are in demand? And what client groups are behind it? Have you seen any new customer groups that are coming to the market? 20 years ago, we said it's interbank market, and that was the case. It was the market of big dealers, big banks. But today there are new categories, both in Russia and around the world. So what customers use what products? Are there any visible, tangible trends globally and locally? Who's the first? Maybe Bart, Refinitiv.
Sure. So I think when we talk about who are the customers are nobody else than what we actually already know them. So it's sell side, it's buy side, and is it now from the buy side? Is it the asset managers? Is it the hedge funds? Is it actually coming out of the real corporate world? I think one thing is clear, and you could actually see this also in the figures. People are trading more on an electronic platform than ever before. And the drivers behind this, and we already mentioned them to a few, is actually on the one hand side, the platforms itself, which become much more accessible, the transparency of the market, which comes along with it. But I also think it's the workflow tools which comes along with it, which means it becomes easier for somebody to trade actually on those markets. So which means For example, the whole world around algorithmics, if you think about in the way how that actually really plays out, people are now actually, instead of calling somebody to actually work an order, they will try an algorithm in the way how they actually really try to exceed in there. And that's where the innovation of the market really sits. This is where we really see the differences coming, and in the way how behavior is coming. People are now more than ever before looking for impact analysis, the TCA which comes along with it, making sure that you actually, when you hit the price, and remember the first days of an aggregator, the best price was always seen as the best one to execute on. In the meantime, that's totally not true anymore. It's not the tightest price which gives you the best result over your whole execution. It is actually making sure you control that process, the way how you actually really work with. And I think that's one of the bigger pieces, what we try as Refinitiv, LSEG group, making sure that we actually serve our customers on the whole playing field, which means from the end-to-end workflow, give you the pre, the trade, the post-trade, all the parts which actually need to come in to actually execute your trade the most accurate as possible. I think this is one of those bigger pieces which are now coming more and more into the market and drives as a result also that market. As I explained already in the first question, when you really look into what drives trading is the transparency of the market data, which needs to become available so that people really can see what you're trading on. Once you have market data available, you can do your TCA, which is actually important. And then you have actually the real driver, which is behind this, where you go to an evolution where during your execution, you start to calibrate your execution style in the way how you actually operate. Is it now an algo or it's a simple VWAP? You can actually influence in the way how it actually really works. And I think that's very important towards people to feel comfortable that they can actually trade appropriate in those markets, be part of that market, and feel themselves comfortable to execute into it. And that drives the whole electronic world. And I think that's the key message which actually sits in there. Driving for that transparency, driving for making sure you have the tools, driving that you can, your execution is in the best hands possible to execute on.
Bart, спасибо.
Thank you, Bart. It's been very insightful. Transparency is of absolute priority, and that's what this FX Global Code is all about. We discussed in the previous panel. Oleg, what do you think? Can you weigh in? What about Bloomberg? What services are in most demand? Do you know that? We know that you have a series of solutions. Can you sum it all up? Can you highlight,
of course,
any trend?
Of course. From I guess let's start from there are sort of like three angles to the topic. There is a client angle, there is instrument angle, and as Bart mentioned, there is a new rising workflow angle. So let's kind of or functionalities angle. So let's try to cover them all briefly. So from client's perspective, so traditionally the bulk of the volume is coming from traditional buy side asset managers and hedge funds. So no questions there, because basically those client types, traditionally called real money, they have access to larger funding, and the operational needs to both hedge effects as well as invest are much higher than other client types. But having said that, we do see growth in the corporate space, as I mentioned. So those clients, especially multinational corporates, are kind of like these days acting like asset managers, and both volumes and workflow needs are definitely on the rise. So if you kind of look into that class of clients, they definitely keep expanding their participation on the platform. And this is both on the global basis as well as in Russia, where we are very happy to partner with key local corporations to ensure that their needs on the platform are met. In terms of particular product types or instrument types, again, spot is kind of taking the back seat. But in terms of derivatives instruments, both swaps, NDFs, as well as metals, this is where we see the growth, particularly in FX swaps, where both electronification and traditional hedging needs are driving increase in flow and platform adoption. And lastly, the workflow angles. So something which is kind of very important, and this is the shift we see lately. So both controls and workflow needs are driving adoption of electronic trading platforms. So simplistically speaking, if kind of back in the days, a client could click and trade on a streaming price from any provider in any environment. So this becomes problematic from controls perspective, as clients need to bring the orders into the platform, ensure that all the limits requirements are met, and ensure that those specific orders can be transacted with available liquidity. Simply just not to overtrade, not to breach any credit requirements and other types of controls. And this is driven by both by internal controls as well as global code of conduct, as you mentioned. So the fact that platforms do provide that type of end-to-end workflow environment, from order management to trading to post-trade, so that drives continuous adoption. So those three things: so client expansion, additional product types, particularly in derivative spectrum, as well as workflow needs. So those three factors are driving continuous adoption and growth of electronic trading on our side.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to put up one of the next questions. Could you go back to Slido? Here's an interesting result. It means we have a lot of exchange representatives because ECNs are top. It means that people use these platforms. It's not just banks' platforms that they use, but also they use fixed platforms. Then my next question is, what are characteristics of FX platforms are in biggest demand? And here's the top answers. Price discovery, liquidity, quality, credit intermediation options, execution speed. And while you respond to that survey, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the product types and client types. I'd like to ask Olga, the representative of CME, and she's also representative of EBS. It was one of the first platforms, maybe the first platform in FX. Olga, Frediani, what are the trends that you see in client groups and product groups, maybe new ones?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, we are seeing, in a sense, evolution of the market structure. Dmitry, as you mentioned, like 10 years ago, 100%, almost 100% of volumes were bank to bank. Yeah, today we see new players, new volumes, new trading modalities, right? And before, non-financial organizations like corporates were more sensitive to the prices, becoming more sensitive to the prices, and so they moved already from voice to multi-dealer platforms, right? Multi-dealer platforms traditionally service D2C market, so corporates, retail, institutional, across different modalities, specifically around streaming and RFQ. So from our offering, EBS Direct can offer that's all an offering to, and we're focusing more around banks and buy-side offering, right? So from the product perspective, as Oleg and Bart mentioned before, so we are also seeing increased demand for outrights and swaps on the electronic side, right? NDFs been also growing pretty strong. Spot is sophisticated currency pairs. We always see demand there, and we all combine it in our EBS Direct platform relationship-based offering platform.
Thank you, Olga.
Ну, вот здесь отмечается, что традиционный спот выходит на
So traditional spot is taking the back seat, as one of the previous colleagues said, and
execution.
execution is on the rise, execution of more complex products like swaps, forwards, NDFs, maybe options.
На российском рынке, коллеги, что вы
What's happening in the Russian market, Andrey? There are so many products here on MOEX. Any trends that you've been observed? Maybe I'd like to shift gears and talk not about the products, but about something else. I've got another analogy. I'm not really sure I can use it. There is a feeling that the wolves, the pack of wolves, stopped hunting and trying to envelop the sheep with transparency and fringe benefits like this. We will eat you, but we will not eat you too hard. We will not bite too hard into you. Something like this. I'm sorry for this metaphor. So I think MOEX is observing basically the same trends. And we also focus on algo. We welcome it. We've embraced it. It's about between 50 and 60% on some days, and it's even higher, significantly higher. We have diverse groups of customers because we service both individuals and small corporates, big corporates. We service them directly. And we believe we are a trading platform much more than an exchange, and our key participants are internalizers, the banks, and that pack of wolves that has too much of food and shares the excesses, leftovers with someone else. So the past trends, there's the individuals who are at home, who are bored, and they're trading from their couch. And these 14 million accounts, they're unique accounts. There's more than 1 million of active customers. Fancy that. 140 million of our population, 100 million active customers. We also have huge interest from corporates, and we also have new products. That's big block liquidity. That's it, I guess. Thank you, Andrey. Indeed, these individuals, retail investors, are very active in MOEX. NTPro, let's talk about NTPro again. So you see that volume is growing. Any trends in terms of clients or products? Which products are most in demand? Thank you, colleagues. What we're seeing right now is huge interest from corporate clients, and I'll share the key trends with you, what they're mostly interested in.
Well, we're interested in getting the best execution, and we want to support this trend, and we want to see more and more corporations as part of our platform. We would be then able to automate the usage of that, and understandably, the more convenient it is, the more convenient interface do we have, the more settings you can automate, the more prospects you would have for the platform itself. This is a trend that has always been with us and would always be relevant, I think. Also, additionally, our clients are requesting some other services. Our platforms are multi-asseted platforms, and we also added forwards and other instruments. If not by type of client, but by platform, of course, of demand today would be the aggregator itself and connectivity to the sources of liquidity and the analytical portal. And these are the things that are of interest to our clients. Thank you, Vyacheslav. Indeed, we are going to talk more about analytics, but perhaps we can really have the audience provide their responses to the poll questions, and really summing up all those questions 2 and 3, the trends that we have today probably can be summarized as follows. More complex products than traditional spot. We have swaps and electronic execution. We have new category of the participants, banks and real money, but also corporations and also retail customers. You have many assets. You have different asset classes, and we're only talking about FX, but also platforms are capturing more and more classes, although classically, of course, those platforms were designed for FX. Also, what I heard today would be some specific types of forwarding, like algo-based as well. And this is something that has been with us for several years, but we'll see how it goes from now on. And I thank you for your answers about the characteristics of FXACN. Before our third question, I would like to ask the organizers to show that third question for you. It's a very simple one. Do you use post-trade analysis, such as TCA, etc.? Yes or no? And my third question to my colleagues would be exactly this, on that. We are not going to talk about pre-trade, maybe. We are talking about post-trade. Those services are quite in good demand. We have heard recently that there were some advances of the platforms, and I wonder what real products for post-trade analysis can be offered. What data would be of most popular among the users of those platforms? And the first question would be to Olga from me. Olga has some slides, as far as I understand. Olga, maybe you can share your presentation, and what is your analysis of the platforms, and what can you say in response to my question?
Dmitry, sorry, I couldn't, due to technical issues here, I couldn't share the slides with you. I'm sorry on this panel.
No problem.
But
Okay.
talking about platform analysis and so just what are we seeing today, right? So as we mentioned, so it's more and more in recent years we're trading on electronically. Right, and talking about just a couple of words around aggregation, we're seeing different trends in different regions, right? So America flattened in the recent year, but it's strong tailwind and movements towards aggregation in the recent years. EMEA has Europe and seen a big growth, right, and pick up specifically growth in aggregation and small and medium banks to look to aggregate. Why they want to do it? Of course, it would be to reduce technology spend and build better distribution at a lower cost base. So talking about post-trade analysis and trading cost analysis. So what do we see in demand today? Of course, it's everyone, the clients want to see demand for more sophisticated TCA, better integration within the system, right? So they want to see better data granularity, deep pre-trade analytics, right? So we, from EBS side, we launched in 2017 our own platform, Quant Analytics, and that provides EBS clients with access to EBS Universe benchmark trading data. So as a liquidity consumer, the clients are able to figure out which liquidity providers provide better liquidity, on whom they should focus more, and what is the market impact or cost of rejections. Just to mention that we will be launching soon as well EBS trade activity dashboard that will be available for everyone, right? So the data will provide like spreads. We will not publish the volumes executed, but percentage of volume executed on specific hours, right? So specific currency, high and lows, bid and offers. So that will give access to the market to analyze their performance against market performance and do peer-to-peer analysis.
Olga, спасибо.
Yeah.
Bart,
Bart, what do you think? Are you offering any post-analysis tools on options for clients?
We do. We offer them over the full suite of what we actually support. And I think important to mention is when you talk about post-trade analytics, you talk actually about two big influential pieces. One is actually the technology itself, how you do your analytics, the libraries, what actually sits into it. The second piece is actually the data itself, what you actually really use to do your analytics over. And as LSEG Refinitiv, we are actually hyperactive in both sides without any mention. People know it's for market data. People know it's for our trading venues. So for us, it's easy to actually bring them back together and actually really work forward from there. And we are driving actually our platforms even higher because if you think at this moment, post-trade analytics and what sits around it, people talk about benchmarking, people talk about peer-to-peer, in the way how they actually really want to compare themselves. In the end, it becomes to the liquidity, which is yourself. So it starts with your own liquidity pool, how you actually really access the market and how your trading behavior is. And that's what you try to influence. Is my liquidity pool good enough? Or is it my execution style, which doesn't actually lead with my liquidity pool? Or do I need to actually really work into it? And this comes in hand with the execution pieces, which are actually coming together. So if we talk about the way how we look at analytics and what we offer towards our customers, we have first our own analytics on a platform level. We have our own data where you can actually really start to build your own analytics. But then we actually also go further, which means we actually go over our own platforms. Also, for anybody which actually really work with us, they can upload the data. We can actually really work with them in our analytics suite to actually make sure that they get to the right information even if it's not on our own platform. We can still actually help our customers out on an analytic place which sits into it. And that's where it becomes really interesting because you actually move then forward. And I know we talk about post-trade, but then you actually go, the moment when you do your executions becomes more than ever vital because the market continuously changes. Every execution you do changes the concept of the next evolution. And this is where we now really focus on is that analytics layer at the moment of trade, which becomes even more than ever important because this is why the algorithms actually came into the market. How can you actually really use that information from your analytics layer and help the user instead of him trying to be the execution part and sits into it? He actually drives the algorithm to see what behavior he wants to get out of it based on the analytics which are sitting into it, based on the analytics which are actually during execution. So yes, 100%, I think it is a key factor in the way how we actually need to move forward. And we are here to help our customers. Okay. And I would say to everybody, if you look for something, everybody's here to help. And I think nobody on this panel or will say differently than the analytics layer shows you what your real liquidity is, shows you what your real execution is, and shows you how you need to actually improve where you can and what is in it for you.
Yes. Thank you, Bart. Спасибо.
Thank you, Bart. Perhaps we are running out of time, but we're going to finish soon. But perhaps I should ask this question of NTPro platform. What is your post-trade analytics? I know that you have a lot of interesting products there. Well, colleagues, indeed, we have an analytical portal which we can offer to our clients. I should say that our analytical portal is available as part of the universal license that is bought by our customers. I only briefly can mention some of the reports that are available to our clients. In particular, everyone is looking at the toxic analysis or toxic transactions analysis, etc. Or they would be looking at the analysis of prices and spreads. So this is a product which many of the competitors may be selling separately. In our case, this is part of your single license. Our clients are getting access to that as a package. So perhaps I should also add here that we're not really following our clients, but this is a product that was created together and hand in hand with our clients because they prompted us as to which reports they wanted to get, and that's what we provided. And we can add any other information that would be important to our clients. Thank you, colleagues. Indeed, in response to the question, we see that 58% are using post-trade analysis and 42% are not using post-trade analysis, but it's like more than half of the market would be using that. Now, I will have the last 5 minutes for the two blitz questions, and I would appreciate a very brief answers. Andrey Skabelin from Moscow Exchange said that we are eating up each other, more or less, and I do have a question too. Are we going to be endangered by this intra-species competition or not? Are we going to receive and see a super platform like a huge Uber or Yandex in our world? Perhaps we can start with our online speakers. Bart, what do you think? Just maybe a few words about that.
A few words, so I'll keep it short. So no, I don't believe in the ultra platform. I think the form of where competition liquidity sits and where people are actually really active is a choice of the user. I don't think you can go to one platform which goes all. I would not even believe at this moment there is actually even one database which would even be able to happen for all FX trades at this moment. So I do believe in the differentiation.
Thank you, Bart.
That it is. Sorry, go ahead.
I understand your point. Thank you, Oleg. What do you think?
As long as the market remains very diverse, which there is no indication that it won't, I believe that there is definitely a space for every one of us because, yes, we provide different services, we provide different angles, and competition is healthy. So I do believe that multi-bank platforms are here to stay.
I got you, Oleg. Sorry. Olga, what do you think?
I think it depends which role these platforms will play. So would it be a payments platform? Will they ready to take a risk of the currencies, or would they provide credit? You know, so it's a number of questions here. So I don't see it happening.
Okay, Andrey.
So Andrey, what do you think? Well, I mean, probably two opinions here. One coming from the Moscow Exchange. I think that Moscow Exchange can integrate into any platform with our technologies, with our post-trade analysis, etc. And as a person, as a private individual, I would believe that soon, when fintech startups would be sick and tired of using Bitcoin, they would see their niche in retail, and they would be using that. Vyacheslav, a really interesting question, but we don't want to really kind of like talk about any super platform, if you like. Overall, we try to have kind of like a closed platform with an ecosystem which would be matching the needs of our clients. Well, thank you, clients. Thank you, colleagues. I'm sorry. We have to wrap up, really. I do have many other questions to ask of you, but we do not have time, really, to really move on with the questions. I thank all the panelists for their contributions, for their opinions. I thank you all for your attention, and we are going to have the next panel coming up.